Well, hello. I have to say that this month's Buried Earth book project and this video have not gone at all as I had intended. I had envisioned that I would spend time sketching outdoors in a forest. I had thought that this sad little plant that I have here, which features very prominently this month, I had thought that it would be nice and fresh and not all limp and dangly. But let me tell you about it. This is a stinging nettle that I picked yesterday. It's a plant that I've had a long and not altogether happy relationship with. It all started many years ago when I was a little girl living in England, and my parents bought a rather dilapidated old house which had an equally overgrown garden, and they sent my brother and myself out to play in the garden while they worked on the house, and we found ourselves covered in itchy welts. We at the time we did not know what they were from. We found out that they were from a plant very much like this, a stinging nettle plant. And I have to say, the experience traumatized me for many years. After the garden was cleared out, I did not encounter this plant again until I was an adult and I had children of my own, and my daughter and a friend of hers were standing on a fence when one of them started crying, saying something was hurting her. We couldn't figure out what it was, and I looked down and I immediately recognized the plants, that they were the stinging nettle, and that was my second experience with the plant. After that experience, I learned that there were people who actually had a great affection for this plant and found it very useful. I was in shock because it was not a plant that I thought had any value whatsoever. At that time, I would have been quite happy to never encounter it again. And I went on for many years, and then I was invited to participate in a Vancouver Biennale project called Weaving Cultural Identities. And it's not often that somebody else documents a project that I do. I usually am the one who's doing this. But I have this quite lovely book, and this is the rug that my daughter and I wove for the project. It's now on a tour around Canada to visit all of the provinces and territories. But it was actually one of the other projects that had the most profound impact on me, and it was this one, which is about the stinging nettle plant. And I'll read a little bit about what the participants wrote here, and it said, "The collaboration that led to Whose Needle will restitch the earth to the sky became a sincere venture into exploring settler experiences and understanding how personal perceptions begin to change with time as individuals open themselves to new experiences. The project began with an exploration of nettle stems as the design focus. Although nettle stems grow all over the world, stinging nettles are recognizably an indigenous plant that grows wild in the city of Vancouver. Graphic artist Sholay Maluji, who has only been in Canada for a few years, still holds very vivid memories and attachments to her home in Iran. To focus on stinging nettle, which in Iran is termed gazane and also refers to talk which is hurtful or upsetting, meant letting go of preconceived notions of what this plant means both physically and emotionally. Ultimately, the collaborators spent more time together to speak in depth about heritage, respect, and gratitude. This experience of sharing notions of home, community, identity, and land was an emotional process for the participants, but with time and discussion led to understanding and mutual respect." And I know Sholay talked a lot about the journey that she went on and how she did a lot of research into the nettle plant and came to respect it. She sort of moved from her dislike for the plant to one of respect. And I thought, well, if she could do that, maybe I could as well. And last year I joined a group that was called Lessons from the Nettle Sister, and I spent about 6 months exploring the nettle in various ways. I I learned how to process it so that it could be used as a rope cordage. I made cordage with it. I extracted the fibers and did a little bit of spinning with it. I don't have a lot of those fibers, but I have these samples here. And I even was able to gather some leaves in the springtime to make into nettle tea. I was surprised that even though I can now pick up the plant, I can touch it, I can harvest it, I've done all of those things myself, and that was really important to me. I've not been able to eat it as a vegetable. I could not bring myself to go out and pick any in the spring that I would actually eat. And that is still a challenge that is open to me to do that. But I really wanted to include the nettle plant here in this buried earth book project that I'm doing. This month I'm not going to do any stitching. I'm going to combine my sad little dried nettle plant with some safety pins, because safety pins, just like the nettle plant, have the ability to cause pain. And as I experienced just last week, I was undoing a safety pin. I didn't have my glasses on and I couldn't see which end I was using, so I ended up jabbing the pin into my finger and then realizing that I was pushing on the wrong end. So I feel like that's what I want to do in my project this month, and these again will go into the ground. And so this page 2 again will go into the ground for another month or maybe just a few weeks, and I'm hoping to sort of dial things back and start getting back on track to burying my pages on the first of the month. I plan to be on track this month, but my resistance to actually working with the nettle has led to the delay. That's the only thing I can explain. That's the only way I can explain it, that I still have resistance to going out and picking it. Anyway, that's it for one more month, and I'll see you again in probably a couple of weeks. Bye.